Peace, blessings, and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Types in embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Power, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka the Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven. Peace, blessings, and elevation, and welcome to another episode of the Father's Haven, where we are on center, on deck with Chad Morris. Chad brings more than a decade of experience in human services, fatherhood development, fatherhood architecture. He's an NPCL master trainer. Chad is doing amazing work in Virginia. In addition to this, Chad has done a multitude of things in the human services field, background in mental health, he's been a coach to many, and supported. And also, he uplifts powerful stories that's tied to his lived experience in this space that we call fatherhood, but is also elevated by his work in understanding human dynamics and people and putting people in position to excel. And as a result of these things, his success is immense. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm gonna try to live up to those accolades you bestowed upon me. I appreciate the acknowledgement and the recognition of a comrade of your stature in this work. I'm esteemed to be in a place where I've earned some comradeship with men who've had some shared experiences that we intersect, although briefly and not that often. It's a great amount of value that we've been able to find in the spaces we're in with the peers we have and with the mentors that we have in this space. And the shared connections we have that through conversation, we found that, oh yeah, I gleaned some insight from this brother. This brother's been a great mentor, and I was able to connect with these people across the landscape. You know, it really is about community power building and about strengthening the fabric of community. And that is something that we all are doing in our respective places. So I'm esteemed to be able to be here with you to share today.
Look, Chad, I love what you just said, right? In the terms of those individuals and comrades, because there's a difference between allies and comrades and how we walk in this work, but also how we walk in the footsteps of some giants who walk before us and some giants who live amongst us, who we both like. I'm gonna speak about Dr. J and his impact, not only on me, but on you as well.
Agreed.
Chad, do me a favor. Why don't you educate the audience on the work that you've done and just share a brief story of a powerful dad moment that you've experienced, either you personally or one that you've seen with the fathers who you've helped benefit in community.
Okay. I was introduced to this work. I started working with a nonprofit that was run by one of my great comrades, a little sister in life, but a big sister in this business, in this nonprofit space. I had been in the community-based mental health space, and in 2010, she was working on a focus group for a white paper that was received by Casey Family Programs for a nonprofit she worked for in Richmond, Virginia, called Trinity Village Center, which is housed in Trinity Family Life Center. I was doing community-based mental health, and she wrote a white paper. Alexandra James, shout out to sis, my comrade and my sister. But she was working there on an initiative that was being funded by Casey Family Programs. Off a white paper she wrote, they invited them to the table based around the safe reduction of foster care. And so, me being in the community-based mental health space, having doing intensive in-home counseling and some mental health skill building, I had a particular perspective about the interface of how organizations in the community-based setting we're partnering and we're able to navigate this system around family strengthening. That was the nature of the conversation. Um, and my perspective in that space was one that at the end of the conversation, she pulled me to the side. She was like, I knew you knew your stuff, but you know your stuff for real. Like, I'm gonna steal you. And I'm like, I ain't coming over there to the no profit. I was cynical. I was in my bag in 2009 and 10, but it was tenuous. And things shifted by 2011, 2012. Things shifted for me where I was being burnt out in that space. And I was looking for something new. She made me an offer that I wanted to refuse, but I couldn't because I was curious to help come run this same program. And we were introduced into work with the safe reduction of foster fit care, which led us to interfaces with the state, with social services, interfaces with Casey, some national work. We met some great partners. In that, we met some individuals from the Richmond Family Fatherhood Initiative that she was working with, who went from ideation around father absence as a public health issue. So they wanted to create awareness in the Richmond City Health District. They had a fatherhood initiative here. They wanted to move the needle from having ideation and celebration and awareness, celebration of fatherhood and awareness of the importance of father involvement. They wanted to find some evidence-based programming. They in turn approached us off the work we had already done at the Changing of a God. Shout out to Anthony Mingo, and approached us about moving into the responsible fatherhood space. So through that, we agreed. We figured out what we were going to do. We were introduced to Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. When I met him, it was in a training class to become a master trainer off jump. That I had done plenty of work in family engagement, family stabilization, family strengthening, family finding, parent empowerment, but not this. And from the beginning, they were like, well, by the way, you're going to run this initiative. You're going to help us lead it. You're going to establish the health locations through the organization I was with. I'm like, okay, I'm being trained, and the people in the class, I got to manage them too. In the group with me getting credentialed. So we literally were thrust into this work. And what I found in this work was some fantastic comrades from day one. We did what we knew how to do. And Dr. Johnson told us from the beginning, he told me personally, he said, well, you got a big job, young man. I've listened to you over the course of these days training. You can do it. If you need something, let me know. I'm right here the whole time. And he provided technical assistance. So in that space, we had our first few cohorts, but I'm beside a giant in this work who had been doing it for 17 years. Not Dr. Johnson, but a gentleman here. They were like, oh yeah, manage him. He's helping us out. And I'm like, how can I manage a person who's been doing this for 17 years? He pulled me in from day one and sat me down in this work with him. I participated as a father from day one in his groups, facilitating my own and managing the others. The best moment, coming full circle to your question, that I had was when one of our very early cohorts that we were working with, and there was a dad who had some challenges. And through the first session, second session, third session, fourth session, he's giving all of his angst about, yeah, I did that, it didn't work. Yeah, I tried it, it didn't work. He was there as a referral from the juvenile domestic relations courts, and he had a rough run because he knew his passion behind wanting to be there for his kids. He knew what he experienced. He knew how he had presented in court. He knew the challenges he was being presented with when he tried to give his plight based on how he was feeling. And I remember something Dr. Johnson helped me with, and from other situations of advocating for men who operate in this court system. I reminded him that you do not have the luxury of presenting an emotional based argument with no facts as a dad. You have to have a track record for what you're doing. If you appear to be out of control as you present your argument of yourself, what level of benefit will you be able to prove to the court? Because the burden of proof is on you to prove that you are trying to be a participatory dad and that you are what I used to call, or always call, team child. That you, as my co-parent, even though we're at odds, we're not adversaries. We have some disagreements on how we can best support these children. He asked me to advocate for him in court, and it was around session 10. He had talked between session 6 and 8. He started softening. He pulled me to the side after session 8. He was like, look, I got to go to court. And he said, I hear everything you're saying. the things that you're saying to me about presenting, I got my track record, I got my receipts, I got the things I showed up for, I got the text messages, I got the pictures with my daughter from all the events we've done for the last 8 months. I compiled this, and I'm not gonna go in there and complain. But can you come to court with me? I said, of course I can come to court for you. I wouldn't set you up for failure, being that your job is not to fight her. Your job is to present that you are capable and willing dad. We went into court. I'm in the back waiting, and it was probably one of the last courts called for the docket. So we were in there for the whole duration of the day. And when he presented himself, despite all that grumpy exterior and all that kickback, besides that one day of questioning, what he presented was the most sincere positioning of advocating for his child and advocating for wanting to be involved without disparaging mom. Even and this wasn't scripted, he wasn't coached into this. What I learned in this space, Kelly, is we are here to help be way showers. We are also to help people shift perspectives, because if you want a different result out of the people you're dealing with, especially your co-parent, you have to show up differently. You have to show up differently consistently. And it's going to take some time. But when you have a chance to have your say in someone who has some decision-making leverage, your best asset is the truth, not your emotionality. You can be passionate. Save that for when they ask you if you have anything else to say.
Right.
But when he presented his positioning, it was so sincere while he acknowledged the mother of his children's frustrations and the challenges that they had. He affirmed her in the space of basically wrapping up and saying, I just want to be able to be in a fair conversation with her to know how to help. From that point, he had not seen his daughter, I would say, probably in about 3 months since the prior court case. Um, he expected supervised visitation. He ended up in that court case getting every other weekend, 2 days during the week. Mom acknowledged in court by saying, this is what I've been waiting for him to say. And so when mom said that, the judge, the attorneys that were representing both of them, backed off all of the tension that had been in the room prior to that point. He was given that opportunity. And the affirming moment really was a few months later, they had another court case that they had to show up for something else that was on the docket, and they revisited the visitation schedule. And so while there was no reconciliation for him and mom as far as their personal relationship, he moved into a space of having shared legal custody, and also moving into a space of having some shared physical custody where it was increasing his time. And what he told me was, when we followed up about that conversation, it was maybe about 2 or 3 months after the cohort had closed. He called me, told me what had happened, and he said, thank you for reminding me to trust the process. And that was probably one of the most pivotal moments, one of the first times, because he was a pretty early cohort. And the guys that we were working with, I was working with directly, not just in the system we were managing, but guys I was working with directly. And since I've talked to him a few times since then, it's been about 10 years now. His child is grown. He didn't look back. His angst changed, his concept of feeling as though he didn't know how to center his voice as a dad and connect with the message of, look, I just want to be involved. It didn't become about the rhetoric. It didn't become about, it didn't remain about the pain of the disconnection in their relationship. It really became about him being there for his child. And mom bought into the process of allowing that to happen despite her own misgivings and the things that they had not been able to solve to that point. And it worked for them. And it gave me some real confirmation that this is where I think I developed the ideation that we are really who we've been waiting for as individuals to show up for ourselves. And that if we can consistently learn to show up differently and not make it so much about ourselves, but make it about the want to meet the need there, which is the father's innate need to support his child, and the child's need to have a father involved, and mom's need to have the support if it is a healthy level of support. All those needs met and converged. And I really viewed it as a situation where they were able to show up for each other and everyone benefited. It didn't mean life was easier. It didn't mean all problems went away and were solved, but there was a situation where it did not become about what had happened in the past. It became about what needs to happen to make this thing work and how do I show up? Because innately, when you strip down all the misgivings, their disconnect wasn't about anything that was more tangible than the needs of that child.
So, like as you break that down and share some of that, Chad, let me back up a second.
Mhm.
Your history and your background. Let's talk
Yeah.
about a little bit around mental health and your experience with mental health, because not every practitioner can create a space of belonging where a person allows themselves to be comfortable enough to choose to say what he said to you
Mhm.
so he can step into his power and work on. Because when we're talking fatherhood, we're talking mom and dad, and we're talking healthy relationships.
Sure.
So, talk to me a little bit about that background, the mental health background, and how that helped you to cultivate that environment for magic like that to happen.
I've been involved with community-based mental health from about 2005 up to about 2012 consistently in that space. It was a growing. I had another business I was running as a doing some subcontract work. I had been educated in the field, but I was doing what paid the bills at the time, and I moved into that space of community-based mental health because I was really looking to counterbalance my income as a changing industry. My income as an industry was changing. It was not as lucrative as it was when I started a couple of years into it, and I needed something. I had the skill set. When I got into it, I fell in love with the concept of helping people work to identify how they could best show up for themselves. I didn't know what to call it then. I started off doing supportive work in a group home. From there, started off, I really fell in love with the space of doing psychotherapeutic education in terms of helping people understand the importance of the soft skill sets that would get them to stabilize if they were able to calm some of the other noise that was going on in their lives. And when I say noise, what I mean is environmental factors, challenging relationships, sometimes our own internal dialogue that may be conflicting and cause us to be in more challenging spaces. I don't operate from the belief that trouble is a place or a destination and that problems can't be solved. Sometimes we don't know how to frame a problem in the formula, like a word problem, that requires us to say, hey, let's work on solving these things, or let's work on not walking into the problem for it to become a magnitude of thing that I can't deal with. If trouble's not a place, that means that you're not supposed to stay in this space. It's not respite, it's not a stopping point. It's just you dealing with some challenges or the individual dealing with challenges they want to work through. And so when in falling in love with that process, I progressed into doing intensive in-home counseling and some mental health skill building support, which led me to deal with families. And what I learned in dealing with these youth that were having challenges in the home, they developed the ISP for them, and the ISP had these goals, and you got these objectives, and you got these interventions. So you got this marathon that they're on, but it doesn't mean that they're going to buy into it just because you lay it out in front of them or you help them point it out. You have to connect with them on a very human level to help them understand that I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to point out everything you're doing wrong. What I'm here to help you do is shift perspective because you want a different outcome than the one you're in because this uncomfortable place is less comfortable it's more uncomfortable than you working on yourself. I can't convince you of that, but I can walk with you on working on you. And if you walk with me on working on you, you may like what's on the other side. So establishing rapport with people is not done through the DSM-5 or DSM-4 as it was at the time. It's not done through the identification of a problem. It's realizing that people often don't want to be seen. And when they are seen, what's going to happen? as a process being seen. Because very often we get into problems based upon somebody seeing us and then we shrink or we hide or we posture or we put these other barriers up. And when you strip that down, you're still left with you. And you really are enough. But how many people are telling you you're enough? How many people have taken the time to tell you you're enough? Well, if I take the time to say, how are you? I don't want to be shoulders past you. What's up? And by the time you start telling me I'm 10 feet past you, no, I'm checking with you for you to know that somebody is listening because you're worth being listened to. That was the space that started in the mental health journey. So when I moved on and came into what I found in mental health was those were systems that were structured by state regulation, by what the expectation was, by what the industry said, and by the standards that were set in accordance with the regulations and policies procedures that that agency built and the methodology that they wanted to use to deliver it, whether it was CBT, whether it was FFT, whatever it was they were dealing with, we had to work in the model of that. We using SOAP notes, we using burp notes. We doing all this thing to document the thing, but you're dealing with a real life person with real life issues. And in that journey, those interventions really are trying to find a way to support them so that if they continue moving on this journey, they see some evidence of promise in their own ability to change so they get a better outcome. So when I moved into this space and working with Trinity Village Center, we were building programs from scratch. And what it was we called them gap bridging programs. That was kind of our colloquialism because I was able to help intimate the need to my CEO at the time. This is not disconnected from these other services. This is something else that's supplementary that will help them if they have other services. Those are our partners in community-based mental health because they add supports we might not add. Social services is our partner because we can add supports they're not add. We're not in competition with any of these people because the goal is to help the family help themselves. So what I learned from community-based mental health and transitioning over to this parenting work is in order to have substantive change within a family dynamic, you got to work with each individual as best you can, or they need to be supported. If you work with the children, are you working with the parents for them to have a shared language to continue the conversation so it doesn't sound left field when mom reminds you about needing your coping skills, or dad reminds you of, hey man, breathe, and reminding himself, hey, before I react, let me breathe. Let me take a pause and answer this question so I don't react in this emotionality. I want to respond appropriately. How do you work with the entire family? And so, with men in particular, and even with my own personal situations, challenges and all, challenges, successes, all of it, I had to learn to start to apply that rubric to myself because it's easy to coach somebody else's situation. But your own challenges and your frailties can become a part of your superpower if you're able to find that place of transparency, to not be prescriptive and talk down your finger about what they need, but be honest when you can relate to it. Be honest when you tell some of these dads you're not but three decisions away from where they are, or three circumstances that you didn't act on, or one circumstance you didn't act on appropriately to be from where they are. We're not that disconnected while we breathe in the same air. Our children are in the same zip code. And we're moving around in this shared space because if there weren't fathers and families in need, I would love for them to put me out of business, but they haven't yet because there's always someone that can glean some perspective. And if I can facilitate those conversations for the people I touch or be the way shower to point them to other providers and other supports, I'm going to keep on doing this work until I'm out of business.
Look, you went deep because couple things. I'm gonna back all the way up to oftentimes we show up in a space unauthentically, not genuine, and in a space where we've been programmed to believe that manhood is bravado, is I'm going to show up and tell you what I need,
Come
and
on.
I'm not going to look at myself from the inside so that I can be healthy on the outside, even though on the outside I look like I got it together
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking like I'm in a space of power. And so I'm also not going to allow any of the men and fathers whom I have the responsibility of helping to navigate this journey we call life to not autocorrect, to pause, to move from reaction to response, because you have had the wherewithal to understand that you're not broken because you want to be broken. You're broken in this moment because there are some internal things that we got to kind of reprogram and rephrase so you can deal with these things and to give you the tools to be able to express what you truly want, name your emotions, and everybody can do that, Chad, right? Your ability to be able to connect, to get people to have buy-in, but also to have shared consensus, not only on the individual mother and father level, but to bring in the systems and institutions who are supposed to be partnering with those parents on that journey to center, and we always love to use that word center or ground, but we have to center and ground in our primary responsibility, which is the child or children, which has, again, allowed you to not only be innovative in your approach, but to be highly successful as a result of such. And so I guess I'm saying that in giving you your roses while we sitting right here, and then asking you, for those who are out here and working with men, working with angry young people, what's some of the secret sauce that allow you to help them to pause for a second and say, you know what? Over these course of 3 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you may not see it now, but if you put in the work and listen to what I'm saying, and I'm sure some of your lived experience played a factor in that, and some of the examples of some of the fathers who have came into place played the role in that. Talk to me a little bit about how those things allow you to have a high performance organization.
So I have to start from a place of I have to give a tremendous amount of kudos, props, adoration, respect, and flowers to Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. And there were some particular things he told me when I had no clue of what we were about to do. Then, when we were in the work doing it, and I still didn't quite have a clue, there were a couple of reminders he gave me. He told me from the beginning fidelity of implementation. And everybody who sat with him has heard this terminology to work the process before you adulterate the process. Because what we're doing is we're taking something that's tried, tested, and proven, and we are providing it in dosages of not me leading, not me teaching, but me knowing. And Jeffrey Johnson didn't say this, Dr. Johnson didn't say this, but I liken it unto those of us who are practitioners of the work are kind of like the GPS. Once we've been through one cohort, you know where you're trying to get to, and you know if you got there last time, and you know where you're going. The dads don't know. But if you got 12 men in the room, you got 12 steering wheels, you got 12 gas pedals, you got 12 brake pedals, you got 24 side view mirrors, you got one windshield, you got 12 windshields, you got 12 rear windows,
Review.
and you got 12 rear view mirrors. Where we go, largely in part, is determined by how the group moves. I know where we're going. Now, I could be a couple of things in that space. Um, if we like it on the travel on the road, not just the GPS to know where we're going. I can be, if you want if you want the lane in your road, you got that divider between yourself and the other side. You have those bumper those reflective strips that are in the middle of the lane, and know that if you cross over this lane and you're not looking, you're gonna hear poop, 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 poop. That's your indication to get back on the road if I don't say anything. I can be that. On the right hand side, you have much more detailed and more frequent strips on the right side because you either got a jersey wall or a ditch on the other side, or a shoulder. Boop, 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 and it's faster. That's your indication to get back on the road. That's what I'm here to remind you of. Wow, I know the stoplights. I know the points we're going to get to. I know where we spend too much time. I know the detours to try to get you to this destination. And the journey is an exploration of self. All of it is an exploration of self. And so I never want to be the Jersey Wall. I never want to be the roadblock. I never want to be the checkpoint if I don't have to be. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to be the road signs that help you get there and be the GPS to help you get there to keep us on track. Because truly, there's a situation where in fidelity implementation, we might start off talking 100% of the time, then we get in that initial session, we move to 80% of the time. By the time we get to the third or fourth session, part of the process when we go into the exploration of their own personal value system. Because very often men in groups aren't compelled to share their concept of what respect is, because every time we as men talk about respect, we venture into talking about disrespect. We don't talk
Mm-hmm.
about respect and love. We talk about respect as a deterrent or a defensive action. That's how we are cultured to keep our feelings suppressed, that if respect comes up, very often it's as a precursor to warn someone of danger or conflict or a protective mechanism. And as children, we aren't taught that that's what respect is. You don't respect your grandmother or your mother in a defensive posture. So why do we deal with men in respect in a defensive posture? Why do we treat feelings like they are things that we have to hide from everyone else when we all have them? And so the other side of that, brother, is I've learned so much through every cohort I've ever been through that I realize in these groups that in parenting and as a man and challenges that I went through, I would liken it unto a sports injury. I played sports when I was young, and I remember being injured, but not injured to the point of putting me on the sideline, but wanting to play through it, right? But in playing through it, you compensate. Your right ankle's a little bit swollen, it's twisted. You can't run that hard, so you start leaning on your left a little hard. It's sore. You don't think you make it worse, but if you do that 3, 4, 5 days in a row and you don't ice it, then your other side start hurting a little bit. And when your other side start hurting a little bit, you exaggerate the injury. The injury becomes worse because you didn't attend to the first wound, but we keep going and we keep going. And if we never treat the wound or the injury, we'll just function around it like it's normal until we can't. I found that as a man, there are things that I didn't confront in my own growth and development. And that's all in transparency. That some of these groups and some of my mistakes have taught me more. Mistakes, loss, challenges in relationships, the honesty of my children when they look at me with those big brown eyes, and I have to tell them the why and not wanting to disappoint them or having to explain my situations to them when I found myself in that what I thought was that place called trouble I talked about that I realized wasn't a place. Having to be transparent, I realized that there were things along the way that I didn't quite heal from that I compensated for. Because I'm not that much different than the dads that I tried to evoke to do some internal exploration. How can I talk to a person about internal exploration when if I don't do it? And so the more I grow, the more I realize that I had to dig a little further. I had to dig a little further. I had to dig a little further. And I'm going to say this to bring it to a point. I've been contemplating with this issue, and I was talking to a cohort of dads I was working with recently about it. We were challenging and talking about the concept of your wounded child, your wounded inner child, right? Or not saying I believe that people have been through trauma, but not everybody is traumatized, right? But our emotional responses are developed based on these exaggerated experiences that leave an impression upon us that we like to call trauma, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
we develop a response based on how much it impacted us, and we might run with that and never challenge it. Because the next time something similar happens, our subconscious mind tells us it's real. And so a brother said to me, he said, I know who I'm trying to become. So I picked up habits, and I'm only focused on the habits about who I'm trying to become. And I'm gonna kill the old version of myself. And immediately I didn't think about it, but I asked myself, what's on the other side of that, brother? He said, what you mean? What is on the other side of the version of yourself you're trying to kill? How far back do you go to realize that this version that you adapted through your habits, right? And I'm thinking about this processing my own stuff while I'm saying it. After the fact, I really processed it. On the other side of that version of you trying to kill is that child who nobody told they were safe. So if you don't tell the younger you inside of you that you were safe then, how do you change your emotional responses? How do you adjust these things? I've been doing this work since 2012, Kelly. I'm just figuring this out in 2024 and 2025. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to continuously challenge these concepts is the renewal of the work. It ain't about a new curriculum. It ain't about a new set of questions. Even though we open these questions up and we want to have these innovative conversations, it's about challenging the concepts on what we stand on. If it's sturdy, cool. But is it sturdy because it's a lean to? Is it sturdy because it's rock bottom? Or is it sturdy because it's been built to last? And if we can go
Mhm.
up and down this ladder thing called life until we can't climb no more up or down, how do we challenge those concepts? And very often it's our self inventory is something that should go on at all times. So you ask the question about getting men to buy in, it's through the concept of introducing them to self inventory, challenging their concept of values to help them realize that, brother, your values don't all your values don't have to be static. It doesn't mean it has to be challenged just to meet your need. But what it means is when we, even I, act outside of the concept of values that we really hold dear, eventually it's going to come out. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to challenge yourself and say, well, I hold this ideal, I try to teach this ideal, but damn, I might not be living by it. And what's kept me fresh in this space is being able to be willing, sometimes begrudgingly and stubbornly, to even challenge my own concept when they ask me, well, what about you? What did you do? What would you do? And I have to be honest about my mistakes. I have to be honest about what I ain't figured out yet. Because how can I lead you? I'm a big believer in authentic leadership. Not that I'm going to put an image up. The mask is the mask, but once we strip it down to brass and tacks, it's what happens when our backs are on the wall. And if we're not happy with what happens when our backs are on the wall, why? Where did it come from? And being willing to challenge that for me, how could I ask other people to challenge if I'm not able to challenge it for myself? And I'm growing in the space to continue to feel fresh enough to keep on refining, keep on shaking the fabric, realize there are more lessons to learn, that I might need to go a little further back and challenge my own emotional responses and my own decision making. How else would I improve? I cannot stand on the ideals of yesterday as if they're static if all of them ain't working. And that's what I challenge men to do in the space. And I think in authentic challenges where I ain't gonna judge you just because I may not understand how you got there. I understand what you're saying, but I ain't got to agree with you, brother. I'm just gonna ask you, how is that gonna work out for you? We're gonna put it in a formula, we're gonna see what the potential outcome is. If you don't like an outcome, then we're gonna keep on walking a little further to see how it works out to include me doing that with myself and allowing those men to do that with me. Not about perfection. It's about excellence and execution to the best of your ability. And when somebody check you on it, whether it's your dad you serving, whether it's your child, whether it's your mate, whether it's a friend, a former friend, an ex-mate, whatever it is, be willing to listen to them. And that's something that we all have difficulty doing. But the ability to grow and improve. Wisdom means that we earn this gray hair through waking up in the morning, and being willing to still be fresh in the space of being a student to those who would teach you.
What you just said was real leadership. I can't be a leader if I won't follow. And your ability of back to the authenticity that
Mhm.
I shared earlier in terms of how you show up and my willingness to be able to ask the questions, not only for them, but for me, and to be okay enough to not allow my ego to step and be a barrier, because every barrier and challenge is merely an opportunity.
Come
And
on.
me being vulnerable enough to say, you know what, here's what I struggle with, but here's what I learned from that. And every session, it's a give and take, a push and pull, that experience of life that's constantly life, and but giving us a lesson. And you just talked about it. Like, if I'm not curious enough to dig deep enough to find what's the lesson and experience that I was supposed to get, so I can kind of move outside the margins. And that, I love talking about the margins,
Yes,
right?
sir.
We sit in these parameters of what manhood is supposed to be based on whose definition, right? And so you create that space for them to realize that fatherhood is about evolving, is about learning. And as a man, as a father, as a mother, we learn from our kids just as much as we're teaching them. Same thing with those fathers we serve. We got to be open, because we are a communal group. And man, so as you dug into that, I was like, whoa, you smoking now. And we're not perfection. We perfect in every moment that we're in, only because in being perfect, we imperfect, which suggests that we're perfect. There's only one of us. And so who Chad is today is not who he'll be tomorrow, if he's working on himself, if he's applying the lessons, if he's developing and leveraging the important piece, which is, and you talked about it about 15 minutes ago, about those natural supports,
Yeah.
right? We got all these components and variables that add value to us, but until we can um, move beyond just resilience,
Mm-hmm.
and embrace the fact that resilience without recharge is death while living. It's that restoration piece that you kind of really went over just a minute ago, and really helps us scope out. Really, that's what father. We sit here and we talk to a father like we've never made a mistake. Like, come on, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you like me. We done sat on panels with people who talk about healing and they ain't been here.
But I'm gonna say something even further. I talk about healing and I ain't finished healing. Why is it that we look at, if I say the word to you, creation, you may think into a scriptural context, a biblical story, or religiosity, or myth. It sound cool to say it was instant, but it was a continuous unfoldment and an ongoing event. Procreation is an ongoing event.
Mm-hmm.
Birth occurs, and as we're birthed, and that process moves into life, we speeding towards the expiration date, and it's a process. Why do we think healing is a finite thing?
I I'm laughing because just as sure as we heal from one thing, we learn in that moment we might be healed. But we learn that
What they say, heal up, bring it back, come rewind.
that's it.
That statement is so super true because we have to go back and refine. Like I even recently, I went through some challenges in some situations I was dealing with, and I'm not showing up the way I was supposed to. In all transparency. And what it boiled down to was when I quieted the noise and I got out of the space of being comfortable with the discomfort that I was in, I I'm gonna tell you something, Kelly, and I'm gonna tell you this in all transparency. And I challenge every father to do this since I did this. I wrote down my story. Because the story we have is the story we tell ourselves, and very often the
Yep.
story we tell ourselves is similar, maybe edited when we tell it to others, right? And I wrote down my story, just trying to get back to a place of centering, as you say, right? And when I wrote down the story, I did something different. I recorded it. I played it back for myself. I ain't that argumentative now in my life. I ain't got a lot of rebuttals. I was rebutting my version that I told myself because I never heard it. And what it
Mm.
caused me to do was it caused me to go back further than certain points. And I realized in going back further, it was stuff that I didn't realize where it was really rooted because I looked over that. I looked at the highlights. I looked at the real of what I remember being the most impactful thing. But when I heard it, I had to go back a little further. I had to look at some smaller moments and realize, like, brother, me talking to me, brother, like, hey man, wait, don't skip over this piece. What about that? And in challenging the what about that, I realized it was stuff that I overlooked that I thought I addressed that I didn't even process it to heal from it. But an emotional response was developed from that point. So then the pattern comes in and the habit comes in. So if we don't challenge our own habits, we'll never get a different result. And so the most glorious thing that has happened in the middle of some change in life is being able to sit down and be like, you know what? You don't have it all together. But if you tell these men, this is what I'm going to say to men, I'm here to help you frame your life experiences as lessons. Can you apply a formula to extract the lesson so it's something as a maxim that you could learn from, that you could share with somebody else that they may learn from, or that you can continue to learn from? And I had to find out, I had to keep going further back, figure out a formula for that thing for me to get something out of it, to realize that you've been operating off of this battery for a while, but no, it's more to life than that. That's just your conditioned experience, Chad. And so when we challenge these men to go through it, it's hard. You can't therapize yourself, but you can find ways to create honest challenges for yourself. Sometimes the discomfort we live in is us living internally with a mask.
Yep.
Because we tell men this all the time. So why, if I'm in the presence of you, just because I'm facilitating the group, it applies to me too. Because at the moment you ask me, what about me? I have to honestly answer that question if I'm going to continue to be in the room.
Yep.
I can't jive my way through it. I can't verb my way out of that thing. I can't hit you with the paid for education words to jive my way out of it. Nope, I got to be transparent. And if you call me out on it, I got to be truthful. Sometimes we don't want to receive the truth from people who see us. It's an interesting. Um, I'm not the. I'm a particular type of rap fan, right? So I don't give a rap opinion, but there was an interview that I'm a Nas fan, but and so I wasn't a Jay-Z fan always. But there was an interview he had with Dean Baquet a few years back. Dean Baquet was, I think, from the Wall Street Journal. He said something in this interview, and I used it in my groups. They were talking about how he was brought up, and he asked them what values you were going to teach your children. And he started asking about the street values. He was like, "No, nah, my children are not being raised in that." He said, "I didn't know it, but I came up in an environment," and I'm paraphrasing, "where people would get into conflict and people would die, and the starting phrase would be, 'What you looking at?'"
Yep.
And it would lead to all this conflict. And so what he went on to explain, and I'm paraphrasing, was that when we're hurt and we're wounded and we're posturing, sometimes it's because we don't want to be seen. When someone sees us, it creates this concept of vulnerability. And if we ain't ready to be vulnerable, we're going to fight, flight, freeze, fear.
That's right.
Very often for us, what gets us into trouble is not necessarily freezing. Freezing might create a missed opportunity. It might save your life, or you might get hit by the truck. It's the fight and it's the flight.
Yep.
And we have that pattern. Now, what I'm going to go further to say is we don't just have that pattern in terms of dealing with people in the street, but we know plenty of people who fell victim to it. It happens in our relationships. And when somebody confronts us sometimes and tells us, or your child confronts you, it's nothing worse than you having a pattern of not being effective at showing up, and your child calls you out on it.
And they'll
That's
do it.
I'm fortunate enough to have never had that, even though I have gone through challenges in trying to figure out how to not compartmentalize my life being a co-parent. I've had those challenges. And I have to continually remind myself that, yo, if I compartmentalize these things, somebody's going to suffer. Somebody's going to be deprived if I separate everything. So I got to be comfortable with learning how to deal with being seen, which takes us back to the concept of Are we being authentic? And if we find ourselves in authentic space, in spaces where we're not being authentic, what you gonna do about it? Either you're gonna keep hiding and being mad because somebody see you, or you gonna take a look at yourself to see yourself. And so me going through that process of listening to my story made me challenge my story and made me challenge my self-image and led to a whole new reboot on my self-inventory. And isn't this what we challenge these men to do when we go through these groups and we put this stuff over the board and we teach them how to go through it? How many of us go through it again to see what changed? I do. And I'm learning to embrace that process more because the fathers are our teachers. I learn more from the men who are in it, who are in that personal hell of just, I can see what I want to do. I know how to get there, but I ain't figured out how to show up there. And now you made me come here to talk to this light skinned dude. Man, I don't want to talk to this dude until I realize I do want to talk to this dude. Because my job is to, hey man, I'm not here to teach you. I ain't your teacher. So what I use, Kelly, I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna be too long with it. I use a technique with these dads I work with where to equalize the playing field, where we count the number of children we had and we add up the ages end to end. You got 3 children, 7, 15, and 11. I got this, you got that. And by the time we add this number up, it might be 15, 20 people in the room, but we end up with a number like 538. And so when we realize, even if you're raising 2 kids at the same time, your 15-year-old and your 11-year-old have differentiated experiences, so those are co-current. So you got to add that 15 and 11 together because they're two different experiences, even if it's going on at the same time or they overlap. What can't we figure out in a room full of 15 people with 538 years of parenting experience? What can we not expose among ourselves? Even if I didn't get the lesson, I can look back and find the lesson. And if I share it with you, you may not make a mistake I made. I might not make a mistake you made. I might be able to duplicate a success you had. Because we got this long-standing rubric and all these years of tenure that we don't account for as individuals, but we account for it collectively. Because I have to believe that the father of the 2-year-old has a lesson to teach me. The father of the 30-year-old has a lesson that he can teach me. If we are creating and co-creating brave spaces where we can open up and do a little bit of hard work. Because that's all it is. It's
Yep.
hard. It's figuring out how to be brave enough to be vulnerable. Not just in the barbershop, not just in your homeboys going to give you the wrong advice because they own experiences. And they don't want you to go through what they went through, so they tell you just how to avoid that. No, hard work.
Look, so I'm laughing because, all right, so the name behind me is really tight because, both of us spent many years in mental health. I did 20 something years and to creating clinical spaces. And, it used to be, okay, we're going to call this, this is a clinical setting. Or then it gets to the point when you get into indigenous practices, we're going to do healing circles. No, I'm going to create a haven that's a brave space, and it's going to be an even exchange. And so that's one of the ways, Chad, I see how you created inclusive spaces for dads to feel okay with not being okay and
Mm-hmm.
breaking that traditional mold. That's a gift and a blessing because the unapologetic authenticity that you show up with, right? Now for you being authentic and moving beyond flight, embracing it, right? You're not freezing and you're not fawning because fawning is right. I'm being something that I'm not.
Or
So,
I'm appealing to get a reprieve.
right. Or appealing for approval from somebody who really can't give you approval because they're not doing what they need to do.
Nope. Or
It's
even if they give you approval, that's just a temporary respite for you to feel like in the moment, and then it's right back to life. It's
yeah,
not
because
so
you never addressed the issue.
affirmation for the sake of just validating is not what we need to be doing with each other. But the positive challenge is in like, hey, brother, if you ever listen to CT Fletcher,
Yeah, yeah,
CT
yeah.
workout guy, he has this phrase. I ain't gonna say it the way he said, but he said it's still your MF set. It's still your set. I'm gonna do my set, but you got a set to do too. Your set ain't my set.
Yep.
I might have 10 reps, you might have 5 reps, but it's your set. Soon as I'm done, it's your set. Once you're done, it's still your set. It's coming. It might be a respite, but it's coming. And so if we're working together, it's our set the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And we got to
Yeah.
remember that part of the work of this space is not clinical work.
Nope.
Clinical work is I have much respect for that space, and I do not operate in that space currently because it is much needed. But when you're dealing with men who are showing up either because they had to or they felt the inner urge to come, it doesn't mean that counseling and therapeutic supports and mental health does not have a space. It does not mean it's not a shared space for us, but it is definitely not the predominant nature of the space because there's some exploration to do when you're in a group setting that all these men are at different places. And if
That
there
part.
may be a diagnosis present, is that diagnosis keeping you from being able to engage in this moment? If it's not keeping you from being able to engage in this moment, it's not debilitating to your ability to participate, nor does it mean that we don't want you to have that support too, because those are our partners.
Yep.
Just like someone who's mandated to an anger management group, that's not this. That is something separate and apart that should be a supplement to what we're doing here, just like this is a supplement to what you do there. And we got to realize that this space has validity because not because we choose to, but because men allow us to hold it. And you have systems and municipal partners and localities that still have a belief in the work, no matter how far advanced, no matter how many times they tear down the brass tacks and want to reinvent it. There's a recognized need for it, and it's been a recognized need because think about how long Dr. Johnson has been in this game. We stand on the backs of men like him who tell us his favorite phrase is keep going, young man. Keep going, young
Mhm.
man. And I know he's told you that too, because once you run something past him, he listens to you very intently. He'll even do this to it, shake it. But if it's valid, this man that's been in this work for so many years is the number one supporter of you continuing to go and will encourage you to bring the lesson back to him. And then he will allow you space to inform other people of what you found, and you meet other people who found this. So this is a fraternity within a fraternity.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Look, and there's something about being able to dissect and reflect on one, the space that you currently may be in that moment. Once you start embracing, you know what, like what I was doing, I could have did a better job, right? As I reflected on it, I probably shouldn't have said it the way I said it. And I listened to how Chad talked about it and how it worked out for him. If he touched that hot stove and his hand got burnt and he told me about it, why did I go touch it? Right? Like,
I
and so
had
I,
to, because I was one of the people that didn't believe in experience and evidence. I mean, I didn't believe in evidence and reason. I needed the experience so it could impress upon me. And a lot of times, you keep on bumping your head. My daddy used to say, you gonna be smart and lean, or you gonna be dumb and strong. Take your pick. Dumb and strong mean you gonna be hard headed. Keep on going, boy. He used to tell me that all the time. And when I was young, and I ended up halfway between the two. I'm kind of lean. I'm kind of smart. I'm kind of dumb, and I'm kind of strong because of my very collective experiences led me not to. I wanted to have some experiences myself, and the older I get, the more I realize. Wait a minute, go back and learn from that old experience you had. Don't do it again. Don't do that thinking because it's you, it's going to turn out differently. And we all, if we have to go that, we have to. But I'm a very big believer that these men that we work with are not that much different than we are, but the ability to hold space to demonstrate the importance of holding straight space, showing up authentically that look, I'm not your teacher. I'm just a daddy with some experiences, and I know this rubric. I know this pathway. I know these lessons. I know some challenges that we can put ourselves through, some guided conversations and some experiential learning. That if you go through this process, I'm gonna be here when you in turn show me your lesson. I'm gonna help give you this formula, But I'm here hopeful that you will unfold it and unlock it and show me your way that you solve this particular Rubik's Cube on this one thing and this other thing and this other thing. And as it unfolds, it might be 2 years from now, but I'm still here. My number ain't changed. I'm still holding group. So when the alumni concept comes and you come back and you tell the new dudes, like, oh, I was with him 3 years ago. I was with him 5 years ago. He told me this. Oh, yeah, I got a group over here. That's the best testimony. Men who take it and run with it, not just for their personal experiences, but those who really want to embrace being way showers, sometimes are some of the most challenging individuals that you have in your space. And when they get it, they're like, oh, okay, I got it now. And they run with it. And then I can sit at your feet now and learn from you. That's a full circle moment where we really are embracing ourselves. And I like to call it community regeneration. We pour into so that others can pour into. And by that, we're reworking this fabric
Yep.
of our community. We're strengthening the fabric by having other people come up as supports.
So I love how you weave that regeneration and that reciprocity. I know one of the things is we got points that we got to get across, but when real life comes up, our ability to dissect that in the moment
Yes, sir.
and leverage the collective wisdom in the room, i.e., the 15-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 22-year-old, and multiplying all those ages, like you said, by the 15 to 20 minutes in there. And when that person gets that moment, so I'm speaking from me and I, and so take from it what you will, but this is how I navigated it. I'm not saying that this is going to be your journey to navigate it, but I did give you a different perspective. So now I can widen your lens and help you by giving you a pickaxe so you can dig a little deeper than I dug. And
Mm-hmm.
so we get to create longer, wider, deeper spaces because we valued everybody in that moment and we chose to empower everybody as opposed to looking at the deficits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as facilitators, when we focus on those deficits, you kind of prohibit people from leaning into the power that they bring to the table. So, I mean, I'm just actually I want you to do this for me, Chad, because you've been cooking. I
Indeed.
want you to leave them with some next steps and invite them to some opportunities that you think would help them lean into either their fatherhood or how, as a leader, you can pour into people in a way that doesn't seem fabricated and theoretical, but practical. Give them like
That's a great
five
question.
next steps and points.
I think one of the most important steps that anybody who's in this work as a practitioner and as a willing or unwilling dad coming into this space is you showing up in that space is not an if because you're there. You showing up to this space is a win because you've been given the time. But if you work on really getting to the root of your why, I mean, beyond I got all this education, I got to make sure I balance out what I paid for. I'm a social worker. I've been in this for so long, it was the next step. No, that's not your why. Because this work has not made any of us rich, right?
Mm.
Refining your why and being willing to challenge that will open up so many doors for the individual because your why is what's going to keep you in the moment, right? Mindful of your past, but not stuck in it. Working towards a future that you'll never get to. We'll never get to it because every time we get to that next moment, it's still now. And so learning to be present in these moments and in these spaces is the precursor for following the process. The other thing I would encourage people in this work to do is your inspiration to want to do the work is great, but your inspiration is not going to fuel the next man. Your inspiration is not it because they all are coming for different reasons. It may relate to fatherhood, Some come willingly, some come curious, some come begrudgingly, some come because, and anybody who comes is still making a decision unless you're dealing with the incarcerated population, they still can opt out, right? They've already chosen to come here, eat, whether it's begrudgingly, willingly, or happy. But what you can do in that space is invite them in and have some refinement in your authenticity. Also realizing the why is bigger than you just want to talk about something. Awareness is fantastic. I love organizations that focus on awareness, right? But growth is not chaotic because it's random. Growth is chaotic because we can't always predict the next moment or the environmental factors. But intentional structure in what we deal with, in having guided conversations that are relevant in the cultural spaces to really talk to the men that you with and allow them to be themselves and allow you to be yourself in that space is the biggest way for you to create momentum that goes beyond the excitement of awareness into you coalescing for a travel and a journey together as men that will help get them to the next space. And so whether you're dealing with an exploration of protective factors, just to have a general conversation with all willing dads to show up or parents to show up, or whether you're going through a 12-week curriculum because somebody told them to come see you. Refining your why is one of the most important ways and things you can impress on these dads early, because if they came because they were mandated, that mandate is not the only thing keeping them in that place. It's not it. You have a different why. The incarcerated dad may not remember the importance of the original why, because if you were a daddy and you're incarcerated, you were a daddy before you had an inmate number. If you were told to come here because you got a custody case, you were a daddy before you had a custody case, before you had a child support case, before you had a DV case. Whatever these things are to lead you, or if you just volunteer because you feel like I need some help and I want to be around people who talk about this. I got something I want to share, something I want to learn. All of those have their different whys, but once you get beyond the mandate, once you get beyond the curiosity, there's something innate there. And the common bond that ties us back is the fact that we are fathers. And we come, the other thing I would remind people of in this space, and it's not a direct correlation to what you asked, but it's something I like to remind people of. If you living and breathing today in this day and time, you come from successive generations of people that survived long enough to procreate. Successive, since time immemorial. You are already a success and a champion in the earth, despite your foibles, despite your challenges, because you're here. We know so many people who didn't make it to this point. Entire bloodlines get wiped out. And you as a dad have a chance to have some continuity that you can't live vicariously through. You have to raise them and let them go on and do what they do. That's our job. But if you love your children and you want to learn how to support them or want to be a part of increasing your level and your capacity to learn how to love yourself and love other people and allow yourself to be loved, brother, we working on it. And we ain't got there yet. We still working on trying to figure out how to do it. So coming into these spaces is an act of love. It's an act of hard work. It's an act of vulnerability. And it's also an act of solidarity with other men that you're going to form fraternity with. It ain't about you liking nobody in this room. It ain't about your football team. It ain't about what side of town you from, man. You in a different fraternity, man. You a dad. And it's no more noble fraternity in my thinking. Despite, and that's not to bespeak any fraternities. What I'm saying is there's a comradeship and fatherhood that we have yet to fully explore. And I think we do good to build the fabrics of our communities as men by continuing to explore it.
Look, and I'll just add, I don't know if y'all caught what Chad did. He took you down that why, but while you was journeying down that why, he was also digging deep into who are you.
Who? Yes.
Um, I,
And that's a question you got to keep on answering. You got to keep on answering. From the wounded child all the way to the man we present with today, to the wise we present the way we present, we're still growing.
yep.
We still growing, man. It's okay that we still growing. I embrace these. They call me uncle. I'm like, man, it's your uncle, man. I got one niece and one nephew. What you talking about? Oh, if you know, I'm just playing OG. I ain't your OG, man. I'm grown, man, just like you, man. You older? No, I just been here long. I woke up more days than you. Teach me something. And the young guys look at me funny when I say, teach me something, man. Huh?
Yep.
Man, teach me something, man, up on this technology, man. You know how to use the phone better than me. Teach me something. They laugh, but I'm so authentic when I say it. To the guy that's been here 30 years more than me, man, teach me something, man. And we got
But
to
you
be willing to be
that's
authentic in
that's
that.
empathy and empowerment at the same time because
Yes, sir.
we
Yes, sir.
level in the playing ground to say it's a fair and even exchange of information that we can share. I
Mm-hmm.
might be walking and sharing my experiences through fatherhood, and you may be sharing some of your experiences and wisdom in terms of how you dealt with the absence of or the lack of more involvement in here. And then I might start sharing something that you didn't know, but you assumed. And so we build and healing happens in community. Nobody pulls himself up by their bootstraps,
Nah.
right?
Now all
And
you're doing is holding your shoes.
that
We
part,
pull our boots on, but if you keep holding your shoes, you ain't got no hands free to do something else.
nope. And but in that moment of what we've just been talking about, we get to highlight how we see one another.
Yes.
And I ain't got my glasses, but normally I put them down here and say, how we see people is how we serve people.
Come
And
on, man.
so by being open enough, by being willing enough, by being humble enough
Mhm.
to say that I see all of you and I'm sharing all of me, like let's do this together. Because to your point, in this fraternity, in this brotherhood, in this experience, the greatest thing we can do is lift up our brothers and sisters in humanity so that we become the best versions of ourselves. And when we do fall or fall short, we get back up because I think it was Frederick Douglass who said there can be no progress without a struggle.
Come on now. Hand in
That,
hand. One hand washes the other, both hands wash the face. No hot
that's
without
right.
cold. That's right. We wouldn't know love if we didn't understand the struggles of a lack of self-love. We
That
wouldn't
part.
know it. And we have to embrace the entire process. I'm appreciative of the platform that you're building, not just the work you're doing. I know the work you're doing, but appreciative of the space you're creating, um, that you're curating and that you're co-creating with the brothers that share on this platform to be able to just give some insight and perspective because we often don't have the opportunity to celebrate each other or to give the insight behind the why. We all know the how, we all know the what, but sometimes it's the other pieces of insight and the ability to be authentic that we don't have enough to do in the hour. You know what I'm saying? But we can get a glimpse into what it is we're doing. So I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for NPCL because if it weren't for NPCL and Dr. J, we may have not met
That
in
part.
the spaces that we've convened because he created these spaces and gave us some blueprints. And then we start running, and then we look back at Dr. J and he keep going, young man. That's his mark. Keep going, young man.
Yep.
And if you see something different, you'd be like, "Hold, what's that? Clarify." Oh, okay, keep going, young man. And I'm running with that mantra, so I'm thankful for those spaces and thankful for all the partners that we have who continue to allow space to embolden the work. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. I do need you to do me a favor, Chad. I need you to tell them
Okay,
where to find you,
got it.
how they can support you,
Okay,
and how they can prepare for episode the next time we have you back, because we're gonna talk about the dad daughter piece.
solid, solid, solid. Yes, sir. And shout out. Okay, so shout out to Girls for Change. Girls for Change. They have been great community partners. Angela Patton, that's my longtime sister. Um, but in the work that they do around centering, preparing Black girls for the world and world for Black girls, we've had the opportunity through the creation of these girls to do these date with dad dances, and I've been honored and blessed to be able to be a coach for the fatherhood family life coach for the dads that are involved in that program. As evidence, the work we've done was worthy of a story being told that happens to be told in the Daughters documentary on Netflix. And that's a wonderful opportunity. Check it out on Netflix. better than I can explain what I do. That movie explains what I do, but also that work that we're doing for girls. I'm a girl dad, so of course the work aligns. Um, you can catch me. My platform is Proving Grounds, RVA.com, Proving Grounds Success Strategies. That's my company. I've been operating in the space of doing consultancy, some fractional C-suite work, but when it relates to this work, I'm still birthing cohorts. I'm still helping facilitators figure out how to apply the ideation. I'm an NPCL master trainer. Shout out to Dr. Johnson. Also, I have been blessed through Trinity Village Center to have been able to operate in a partnership with Be Strong Families out of Chicago.
Mhm.
Those of you familiar with the Parent Cafe, shout out to Be Strong Families, Kathy and her team. There's a parent cafe deck which centers on the protective factors and engaging parents in peer-based learning using the protective factors in parenting to have these peer-based conversations in the World Cafe process to create these brave spaces. I also was blessed to be able to have input in curating the Dad's Cafe deck a few years back to update some of those questions in partnership for a cafe process just for dads. So there's a Dad's Cafe process. So in Richmond next year, I'm going to be engaging in 4 cohorts of fatherhood work here, and they're going to be 2 Dad's Cafes and 2 Parent Cafes as convening and alumni events in between those cohorts. So I'm excited about the work we're doing here. Girls for a Change has some exciting stuff coming up, as evidenced in the Daughters documentary. It is about that work. The movie is great, but it is really just the work we were already doing being captured and told. So we're able to leverage that on the impact campaign. Check out girlsforchange.org to tune into the impact campaign to support not just the ongoing work of the Date with Dad dance and their other fantastic programs, but also the advocacy, the conversations about the carceral practices and visitation practices, about the impact on the silent victims of incarceration, which are the children, and then the importance of family reunification. The impact campaign can be explored there. You can find me also at provinggroundsrva.com, Chad M. Morris on LinkedIn, Chad underscore M underscore Morris on Facebook. I'm not the greatest poster in the world, but all things that to be able to contact me, and it's a little bit of the work I do up there. And follow me on YouTube too, because there's some videos and some webinars that I've been able to do about the importance of fatherhood engagement and a whole bunch of interviews with insight about the Daughters Project. Um, but yeah, I'm in those places and I'm in Richmond.
Yo, y'all heard it here. Support my dude. He's doing amazing work. He's been out here for years. And where you can, if you're a funder, support his nonprofit. If you are somebody who values this work, volunteer. All this is about community, being collective, and being open. Another dope episode. I told you I was gonna bring a warrior, like my comrade. We doing it. We lock arms and we make it happen.
That's
So
right.
until the next episode, shout out to my guy Chad. We salute you for being a general in this work and looking forward to locking arms and continuing to mobilize and transform this thing that we call fatherhood to change outcomes for our youth, particularly our sons and daughters, to make the world a better place.
Appreciate you, Kelly, and thank you for having me. And I'm back. I'm tuned in. I'm dialed in. And I ain't but a phone call away, and I ain't but a couple of zip codes away from you too. It
That
ain't.
part. Yo, we gonna be locking arms soon. I gotta get you down here.
Yes, sir. Let me know. I'm there. First
My
thing soon.
dude,
And likewise, get you up here too.
my guy, appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Blessings and elevation. We will bring you inspiring stories, expert insight, and practical tools and information to support you. Types and embracing our authentic selves, we can pave the way for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. Empower, heal, and support fathers and men on their journey. I'm your host, Kelly Little, aka The Village King. Welcome to the Father's Haven.